Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for Nerds by Nerds, hanging out with
Nathan Nerdarch.
Nerdarch is Ted.
pumping spells, innovation, or just lame in your game. First off, I want to thank Dice of Rolling for sponsoring this video now on Kickstarter. Check out their color-coded 5th edition optimized dice on Kickstarter. The link is in the description below. If you happen to see this video beyond when this Kickstarter is going on, the link to actually go check out their products is there as well. So go check out the Dice of Rolling color-coded 5th edition optimized dice.
All right, so today we're going to talk about some spells, which is linked to rolling dice because you roll damage for those spells.
Yeah, all the dice made me think about rolling for fireballs and stuff, so I thought it was appropriate.
So what about rolling dice and spells and 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons are you guys talking about?
Well, Ted and I have gone back and forth a lot about, there's sometimes where it's great that you can pump a spell up, but there's a certain point where you should just say, no, I don't want to pump this anymore, I'll just use a different spell.
All right, so that's what we're talking about. The value of being able to increase the spell slot level for a particular spell of a lower level as opposed to just casting the higher level spell?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Or just casting the lower level spell a bunch of times.
Right.
Well, there's also that, yes, if you have the time for it.
So first and foremost, I think a good, a good scale is a spell to the next level is generally useful. But once you go 2 levels higher, the spells are just so far in power level different that it's not really all that worthwhile.
So what I'm hearing is odd to even, good. Even to odd, not so good.
Well, so all right, for case in point, Magic Missile. So many wizards get it. But
do they really get it? Do they really?
Well, hopefully not. Hopefully use their spell, so their shield, so it doesn't get them.
Their shield spell, yes.
So, all right. So first level, it does 3d4 plus 3 points of damage. Its force is not resisted. It's awesome.
Do you remember back in the day when you just got one magic missile?
I do in fact.
And then you got extra ones for free when you leveled up.
So when you cast that as a second level spell, all right, you get 4d4 plus 1. Great. Well, when you bump that to a third level spell, that's only 5d4 plus 5.
I would point out, though, that literally casting it as a second level spell is a cloud of daggers that can't be blocked by shield. Just so you know, folks.
Okay.
If you're paying attention at home.
Now is Cloud of Daggers savable? Can you roll
No saving throw. You just take the damage and stays in that area for as long as you concentrate on it. On that 1 5-foot square, that one spot on the map, don't even fucking think about stepping in it. I will cut you. I will cut you deep.
But if you compare that 5d4 plus 5 points of damage to a fireball, which is 8d6,
to a whole bunch of people in the area.
To a lot of possible people, I just don't feel that it holds up. It doesn't compare. Now, I know your character in my game, you're like, well, I got nothing else to do. There's one dude, I'm going to magic missile him like crazy.
Uthengar is infamous for action surgeon with 2 5th level slot magic missiles. I don't even care. I'm just going to roll a bunch of magic missiles. I don't even know how many magic missiles that is, but I know it's a ton.
Yeah, and that's come up, but
it's 14.
When you start doing the math, it's kind of looks silly to do that.
It looks really impressive when you drop them on the table.
Yeah, it does.
And then Ted's like, how much damage did you do? I'm like, I did 32 points of damage.
That's force damage, baby.
He's like, that's it. You rolled all those dice and you did 32 points of damage.
Now, when you've got to hit something and you got to deal something deal type of damage that they're not going to resist, force is great. So magic missile pumped up, great. I mean, if they've got a way to jumping out of the fireball so they take nothing if they pass their save, well then magic missile makes more sense. Similarly, Burning Hands and Thunder Wave. If you only can hit this little tiny area and it's bad to hit everything else, then launching a fireball right in front of you, right outside your range, is no good because you're going to damage a whole bunch of other stuff. Possibly set an inn on fire. That's never happened in our games at all. It's like happened 3 times, I guess. We've burnt down stuff.
I would think Burning Hands can set inns on fire too.
Yes, but
it's a controlled fire.
It's a controlled fire. It's like a whoosh. It's it's very descriptive. You'd have to hit a table with it or something, I think, to catch on fire.
You'd have to literally cast it at the wall of booze and go for the spirit's shelf.
Yeah, so a thunder wave is another example. You know, you're not going to have a lot of collateral damage, but if it was the size of the fireball, that would be a problem. So being able to stack the damage on that by bumping the level up makes sense in very specific circumstances. But obviously, if you're just going for straight damage, fireball's really good for third level.
And also too for battlefield control, because if one of the maybe you had that cloud of daggers spinning behind them, so you want to try and thunder wave them into it.
Or there's a ravine behind them, and you want to get them off the encounter for the rest of the time. You know, you can fireball them all you want. It's not going to knock them off the precipice.
Now, I will say that it is not always a case in point, in my opinion, that bumping spells is a bad choice. There are a number of times that are non-damagey type effects that you can't get from, casting other spells. For instance, invisibility is a concentration spell, and you get one person per casting. Well, you can't concentrate on more than one spell at a time, but if you use another spell slot higher, you can target another person. So one concentration can get multiple people in an invisibility spell, as happens in your game all the time.
The Scarlet Sisterhood, Megan does it all the time. She'll use her 5th level slot to cast invisibility
On everybody.
and get the whole party invisible, yes.
And Mass Suggestion is an example of a spell that the duration increases the higher you bump the spell slot.
So there, it's another situation. While Mass Suggestion is probably going to be done, in combat just as much as out, it does have that situation where having a greater duration is significant to it.
Well, even regular suggestion, I believe, is what you can also pump it as well. Once you get in those cases where you're increasing the duration to 8 hours or 24 hours, like literally, if you have nothing going on, you can literally keep concentrating. Then by the time they would even think about coming back to the place, that battle is long gone, or they could have literally performed tasks for you.
Mm-hmm. And there are other spells where you don't get that power anywhere else, like a Dispel Magic. For Dispel, if you don't bump it up, it's a die roll on whether or not you disrupt the spell.
Counterspell.
No, Dispel Magic.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Counterspell works the same way.
Counterspell does work the same way.
I'm like,
but Dispel, it's different because counterspells, while they're casting it, dispels after they've cast it. But if you don't bump up that level, you're going to have a roll off on whether or not it actually succeeds.
and there are times that it is, in every way, shape, or form, important that that spell does end right then and there, or in the case of counterspell, stop it from actually happening.
And a spell, going back to like the lower level spells, we've got Cure Wounds is a big deal. Sometimes you just need to cure a lot of hit points at once, and if you don't have access to the higher level spells like Heal or any of the Mass Cure effects, then you just have to sack that extra
Well,
spell slot.
it becomes a time sensitive situation. If you are locked in the heat of combat and your tank, the person between you and the bad guy, is taking a lot of damage, well, it might be worthwhile to say, all right, well, I'm going to use a higher level spell slot to give him a lot of hit points right now because he's hurt bad, so that it doesn't trample him and then come to me. It's worthwhile. Outside of combat, well, you can use those lower level spells and get your stat modifier on every single die as opposed to just the one.
Well, I was going to say too, to the Mass Effect healing spells as well. Sometimes you don't need to heal a lot of people. You just need to heal one guy.
Right.
So then it makes sense to like, all right, I'm just going to push this spell up because we need it done now and it needs to be him.
Right.
As opposed to, all right, I'm going to heal die 8 of this round plus. I'm going to do it again next round. Plus, it kind of gets boring. And it's like, I want to get this guy up and then Blade Barrier or Flame Strike them or something cool. Or Spiritual Guardians or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
Oh, I love Spiritual Guardians.
That is a good one to bump up because it's an area effect of your choosing, and it's a concentration power, and it slows people. So it does a whole bunch of things that are really beneficial, but you can up the damage per turn by bumping up the spell level.
Well, speaking of which, Spiritual Weapon's another fine weapon, or spell to bump up because it's going to do more damage every round that it gets to act. It's not a concentration spell.
That's exactly where I was going to wind up going because that's actually what I've started doing. Being a higher level caster, I don't typically burn through all of my spells. So Spiritual Weapon, typically a second level spell, it swings for, a piddly a couple die 8s. But if I bump that to a 4th level spell slot during combat, that means my spiritual weapon is swinging for 4 die 8 points of damage when it hits.
With a bonus action, you probably weren't going to do anything with.
Right. So
And you don't have to concentrate on it.
bonus action to cast, bonus action to attack. Golden.
So the other thing I think what we've discovered is really 5th edition spellcasting, the bumpable mechanic is a mixed bag. Like anytime you're talking about, bumping the damage for most spells, especially as an arcane caster, you're probably better off just finding a spell of that level because it'll probably be better than the one you're going to use. Then there's some like really specific circumstances where you're like, well, actually bumping this is way better. In the case of invisibility, or the case of I just need to heal one guy a lot, or I just need this spell to last a long time. There's some interesting ways to do it. What it really comes down to, like the least exciting way to use the pumpable spells appears to be just doing more damage. But that being said, there's certain classes like Bard and Sorcerer, they only get so many spells. Mm-hmm. So you might be better off like keeping Fireball, but there's using higher level slots when you get up there. And maybe at those higher levels you just decide, well, I'm just going to take other options, right? Have more options than just going to do damage with different things. Because you're like, all right, well, I do have the Fireball. If I do need to do fire damage, why would I take this other fire spell? Because I only get so many to begin with.
Well, so that's a great point. Also, if you multi-class, you get access to lower level spells, but you have higher level spell slots if it's multi-class into 2 spellcasters. Like if you went Druid and Wizard or Druid Sorcerer, you're going to have a decent spell repertoire, but you're going to have maybe 5th, 6th level spell slots and no spells to cast them with. So you can pump up your spell effects.
Point in case with Thingard. That's why there is a lot of times he will do a 5th level Fireball or 5th level Magic Missile because he's got these higher spell slots, but he doesn't actually have the spells to cast of them. Mm-hmm. So he's got to be creative with the ones that he does have.
So for Dave, you brought up the point about the limited spell selection. So like what you could do, knowing that you've kind of got a one tier bump, you could be like, well, every other level I'll grab a damage dealing spell and use your even levels to get the more effect based things. It's just a concept, just an idea.
Well, yeah, you could do that. You could trade out those lower level ones for the higher level ones. But my point is, like, it's just another tool in the toolbox for those particular character classes where you're going to have to make key decisions at certain points. And, doing more damage, well, at least you have another way of doing it if you just don't want to keep taking damage spell after damage spell after damage spell, because how many different ways do you need to hurt something, in the game? You might need a couple just to switch it up in case of resistances or immunities, but overall, if you want to be a little more versatile, then it's nice to have that option of going, okay, well, I can actually still use these lower level spells and still make them effective at my higher level slots if I need to.
Right. So it begs the question, what do you guys feel about the pumpable mechanic of spells in 5th edition? Go ahead and continue the conversation down in the comments below. While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Go check out the Kickstarter for Dice of Rolling. You can find a link in the description below.
You can also patronize us in a good way over on Patreon.
So until next time, stay nerdy.